Welcome to Bytes of Code. In this video we're going to be taking a look at user input. So how to get information from the user. That's a very important second step. We've learned how to show information to the user, but now we want to get user input so we can recognize if this is a number, this guess is equal to a random number. Maybe their guess is a little higher than our random number or a little lower than our random number. So far we have been able to do an import of a library called random. We've learned how to print text to the user. We've learned about variables and also how to assign variables, because in this case we're using the random library in order to create a random number. And this variable, my random number, is what we are now printing for the user. Eventually we're going to get rid of that because we don't want the user to know what the answer is. Otherwise they would get it right every time. But also, once we get the user input, we're going to be taking a look at how to compare the user input versus the random number. So let's get started. Let's get started by creating a variable. Let's do a user variable. This is going to be equal, and here is the code that actually gets the user's input, is input. Open parentheses. And this is now a message that we can present to the user. Please type a number. We can even say, please guess my number. And we have this line here. This is our new line, our input. Please guess my number. And we'll notice that the cursor is right next to it. So the program is actually waiting on the user to type a number in. Once they type a number in and press enter, then the program actually finishes. And you can see that here with this little symbol. That's telling us that the program finished. So before, if we didn't have that, our program would run and it would finish automatically. It wouldn't stop. But now that we're using input, now the program is waiting for the user to type something, then it finishes. Again, it's important to have the proper lowercase on these functions. If you type in the wrong case, you'll see Python saying, hey, I don't have any idea what this word is, input. It's case sensitive, so make sure to put the proper case. So now we have the user's number. Let's actually do a print to prove that we have the user's number. You have typed please guess my number. We'll do 40. You have typed 40. So we have the user's guess now. Now how are we going to be able to compare the user's guess to our random number? So let's get rid of this. It's now time for the user not to see what our random number is. And we also know that we can get rid of this because we have the user's number. So these are our two variables. Space this out. Random number and user variable. We can call this user guess. In order to do an if statement, this is a comparison, we would type if, and now is the condition that we're comparing. We can say if user guess, this is the variable name, is equal to, notice I'm using two equal signs, my random number, then we will, it's a colon at the end, and the next line we will print you have guessed correctly. And that's it. This is our if statement. So we're going to run the code. Please guess a number. Now we have no idea what the number is. We're just going to type 10. And we see that we had the wrong number because we didn't say you have guessed correctly. We can do also another if statement. If user guess is not equal, that's exclamation mark equal sign, to my random number, we can print out you have guessed wrong. So we're going to try it again. We're generating a random number. Now we're waiting on the user's guess. Let's guess 10 again. And we have successfully entered this condition. The user's guess was not equal to my random number, and because of that, we now print you have guessed wrong. When using if statements, it's important to know the indentation. Notice the indentation. If we just bring this indentation back, just one, we just drop that tab, we now have an indentation error. And if we read the error, line 10, this line you have guessed correctly, it says that we expect an indented block. If statements always should have an indent after it. This is a new line of code. Now, what happens if we indent also this if statement? Does it work? Let's take a look. Again, we have an indentation error, expected an indent block, because always after an if statement, you want to have the next line to have an indent. Now, will this one work? Well, it's running, so let's see if it works. We're actually going to kind of give us a little advantage here. We're going to print what the random number is again. Okay, so once we have this line here, we're going to print what the random number is. This is going to happen after we have the user input. So we're going to get the user input. Let's just put 41. My random number is 58. So now we can kind of understand where this if statement goes. But 41 and 58, that's a wrong guess. So why hasn't the code said that you have guessed wrong? It's because this if statement belongs to this one. This is the parent. So we actually would only get here to this condition if we were to successfully enter this condition. So what does that mean? That means that if the user guess equals my random number, then we are able to compare these two numbers at this line. But of course, this line would never work because we already know the user guess equals a random number. But the point of this is to demonstrate that you can have if conditions in other if conditions, but also it's very important to notice the spacing, because this is tabbed. Just this little space right here has now given it a parent if condition. So if we lose the space, we run the game again. My random number is 41. You have guessed wrong. Now this if condition belongs to itself, and that's why we're able to get the correct print statement saying that it was a wrong guess. So this is going to end the video for now. We have user input. We have an if condition. And we also have a print for our if condition to determine if the user guessed correctly or user guessed wrong. But we want to do a little bit more. It's kind of difficult for the user to get this correct. It's a 1 in 100 chance. So we're going to do in the next video some hints telling the user how close they were, whether they were within 5 or 10 numbers, whether they were too high or too low. This will help us understand different use cases for an if condition. So at this point, thank you for watching the video. If you have any questions, please leave a comment, and I hope to see you at the next video.